Well, hello everybody. Today what we're here to do is we're going to go ahead and restore this large class 4 here, as you can see, with OMNICHROMA. Okay, so this tooth or this preparation has already been bonded. And before we start, I always, for restorations large like this, I always start with a wax up and a lingual putty. So this is, assuming this is a wax up, I will create a putty matrix that looks like so on the palatal side, as you can see, capturing the incisal edge of the final restoration. I will also create a buccal matrix that gives me the full contour of that final restoration. This way I can peel the layers back and see exactly how much restorative space I have. Okay, so let me set that aside. So bringing back the restoration in hand. Today what we're going to use first is OMNICHROMA itself. This is what the composite looks like. This is OMNICHROMA, and I'm going to use the first layer on the palatal using OMNICHROMA. So I'm going to go ahead and put my matrix onto the tooth that's yet to be restored, and I am going to apply OMNICHROMA to that. What I notice is this material is very nice handling, as you can see. It's very putty-like. So I'm going to put this layer on, and I'm going to thin it out and adapt it to the tooth. This is a multi-use instrument, and I'm just basically spreading the material out and thinning it out, and attaching it, connecting it to the etched and bonded tooth. As you can see here, I'm just thinning this out like so. And create the lingual or the palatal boundaries of that particular restoration. Next, I take a IPC long, as you can see, and I basically open the contacts up on the proximals. And then I'll use a brush with some modeling resin. This is a number 1 brush I'm going to introduce here, and we're just going to finesse the OMNICHROMA a little bit. And then we're going to go ahead and remove the palatal matrix, as you see, and we're going to polymerize it one more time just to make sure the palatal is completely attached to the tooth. And there you go. That's very nice there, and you can see it's very natural and translucent. The next thing what we're going to do is we're going to apply the OMNICHROMA blocker, and I'm going to apply this so that it's about up to ½ millimeter from the full contour of the tooth. So if I bring my palatal matrix back, introduce that here, you could see that is about 1 millimeter right there. So I'm going to fill that void up so that I get about up to ½ millimeter from the final contour with the OMNICHROMA blocker. So we're going to go ahead and switch that out and change it to OMNICHROMA blocker. And we're going to introduce that very gently, like so. And we're going to bring back the multi-use instrument and just gently use it to adapt it to the tooth. Any excess, and I'm going to also burnish it to the fracture, because this material is the blocker, it's opaque, it's going to hide that fracture line very nicely. And I'm going to go ahead and take my IPC long and further enhance the shaping of this blocker layer. And Again, you could see how nicely this material handles. It's very creamy in nature. And then I'll use also, this is a multi-use, not a multi-use, excuse me, this is a gold grip aesthetic contouring instrument. It has a spoon on one end, and I use this spoon to just burnish and really intimately attach that blocking layer to the tooth, like so. And then coming back with the IPC, I'm just going to use this to remove any excess. Look how fine that shaves off very nicely. Do it again, just shave that off, any excess. And then once again, we'll use this to dap or burnish to the tooth to hide any fracture line there is. And then I'll take a number 3 brush with some modeling resin, and I'm gonna, and then we'll just finesse that really nicely, like so. So there should be no evidence of any fracture line at this point before we polymerize this. Right? You don't see any of the fracture line. And then I can double check. This should be about 1/2 millimeter from the final contour, and I can verify it. That looks about right. So I'm going to go ahead and polymerize this layer. Okay? You don't see the fracture line, and that's almost like a perfect match shade-wise with some really natural translucency on the incisal. So now I'm going to apply my final layer, and I use what we call the pull-through technique, using just simple mylar strips. So I've got 2 strips of mylar, as you can see here, and I'm going to put it onto the proximal of that particular restoration, like so, into the sulcus here, because this will give me a perfect tight contact. So I apply it like so. Let me do that one more time here. There we go. And I'm going to place OMNICHROMA on the facial here. So let OMNICHROMA only. And we'll just go ahead and apply that. And then I'll use my gold grip aesthetic contouring instrument just to adapt it to the tooth, especially in the proximal, because that's where I'm going to use the pull-through technique to get us a very intimate, tight contact. Note that is convex, which is what normally it should be. And then I'm going to check on here, make sure it's connected, and we're going to just pull this through. Like so, and it gives me a perfect facial embrasure when I do that. There we go. So we're going to go ahead and just pull this through, and it gave me a very tight contact and a perfect embrasure. Look at that. That's like V-shaped, like every other tooth, like the adjacent teeth. And then once I've achieved that, then we just burnish this down. And there will be a invisible finish line once we do that. Okay, and then I come back and I use my number 3 brush and just finesse that material. You can already see how nicely OMNICHROMA blends in. This is just type it on teeth, right? You cannot see the class 4 anymore, and we haven't even polished it yet. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and polymerize that, and we're going to go ahead and Look at that, that's like invisible. But all I have to do now is get the texture so it matches the adjacent right central incisor. A coarse disc. These are basically your 3M soft flex disc, and I'm going to go ahead and take the coarse one first. Go ahead and put it onto my handpiece, and we're just going to reduce some of the material here. So you can see this is overbulked a little bit, so I'm going to match the other adjacent tooth. So I just take some gauze with water and just take away the, this is all done dry, all right, all the material, just to get the dust off. And I look at the contour again. That's pretty close. And you can check that. Again, perfect blend. And now I'm going to go ahead and smooth that out with a medium disc. That was the coarse, and you just get the scratches out a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to switch gears and get my secondary anatomy. Primary anatomy's done. In fact, you know what? I'm going to put a little bit of notching here just to make it. You see, guys, this has little notches there. Let's just recreate that on my restoration to be more true. And you can just do this with this. All right, recreate those notches. And now I'm going to create my secondary anatomy, because look at the anatomy on this tooth. It's very easy. This is a Brasseler F8888 fine diamond burr, flame shape. And you just do this very easily. Okay, that should do it. Then what I'm going to do here now is go ahead and tone down some of those burr marks, and we're going to use some rubber points. These are what we call coarse anatomy trimmers. They come in different shapes and sizes, and I'm just basically going to tone down the anatomy, make it more natural. We're going to use all 4 of these. And this will give you a restoration that will rival any porcelain you'll see in a few minutes here. So I'm just going ahead and use these instruments to tone down the roughness. See, I don't use it a lot. Just these are all the same, just different shapes to get to the certain places I want. And clean that up. But I want you to notice, look at OMNICHROMA. That's perfect match to the adjacent tooth. And once we get the anatomy, it'll be very nice. All right, so next, then what we do is we use what we call ASAP. These are the wheels that look like that, 45 micron, 6 microns. And again, this is just toning down the anatomy to make it very nice and natural and subtle. And then we'll use the finer one. This is the 6 micron one that I'm going to introduce next. And finally, I'll put a little bit of tertiary anatomy in with the same Brasseler burr, because this tooth has it, as you can see, by doing this. This is how we create pericommata if it's called for. If the tooth doesn't have it, then you just skip this step, right? Simple as that. And then once I've achieved that, I want to tone that down 6 microns. I don't want to erase anatomy, but I just want to tone it down a little bit. And you can see how efficient this workflow is. And then lastly, I just take a cotton wheel on a mandrel, and we'll put it here. This is the final step. Take a little bit of enamelize, aluminum oxide paste, just a little bit like that. That's all I need. Just rub it onto the tooth, dry like that. Take my cotton wheel, and here's the magic. And there you go, ladies and gentlemen. A large class 4 restoration restored with OMNICHROMA, and it's seamless. Okay.